meeting where we were talking about whether or not to lay off 1,000 people, that instead we would lay off 4,000 employees. And I should tell you what a dramatic impact that is. We have about 15,000 non-sworn employees, so who are not police, not firefighters, but are on the general fund. We early retired 2,400. We transferred almost 600 from general funded positions to special funded positions. So we have 3,000 fewer out of that 15,000. If we laid off an additional 4,000, we'd have cut almost half the workforce that weren't firefighters or police, meaning all your services virtually evaporate and get done at a snail's pace, or we stop doing them entirely. I've been pushing for months to not do those layoffs, not have those service cuts, and to make up a lot of the shortfall through efficiencies and good ideas that are out there. Because there are 100 things that people have talked about doing in the city of Los Angeles, doing better, but we never got around to it. Partly because I wasn't here yet, but more because there wasn't the kind of pressure, there wasn't this kind of financial disaster facing us. So now we've been looking more carefully at a lot of the efficiencies that the city should have implemented years ago, but now we really have to. The city does a terrible job with collections, for instance. So we have had some people, particularly parking lots, get so far behind on their taxes that they owe us millions and millions of dollars. And then they find some legal way to transfer it to another entity and never pay. The largest debtor to us right now owes us $73 million. The owner of that company is probably going to go to jail, but we'll probably never see any of that money. So there are a lot of things we can do to change our collections process. The way it's worked over the years is each department does their collections. If they don't care how well they do it, we lose millions of dollars, and it's been that simple. So we're centralizing more in the Department of Finance. We're trying to systematize it more. I'm pushing hard to look at the amount of time we allow parking lots in particular to pay. And if we take a month, only give them a week. And as soon as they get behind, we need to work with the Board of Equalization and other entities that have more legal clout than we do to shut them down. I mean, there are ideas that are as simple as this one that I've been advancing for a few months and the city's been implementing, and we've been saving millions of dollars, which is we're cutting our city employees' salaries in a lot of ways by cutting back their benefits and a number of other things. Cutting back overtime, a lot of them did. So many of them are taking home 10%, 20% less than they were before. But we have hundreds of thousands of dollars in hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts for similar services that we contract to outside business people. But we haven't asked any of their employees to take a cut. And so I said, well, why don't we ask everyone for a voluntary 10% cut? And some will want to pitch in out of the goodness of their hearts. Some will realize it'll help them look better for a renewal of their contracts. Some wouldn't do it. So we sent out letters to all of our major contractors. Many of them said, yes, we'll take a 10% cut. Some working with the city attorney's office said, we'll take more than a 10% cut. Partly because they want to be sure the city attorney uses them again, and they want to look good in the eyes of the city attorney. Some said, we don't have that kind of a margin, we'll do a 5% cut. And some said, heck with you, we don't have to do anything. But when you combine all of it, I'm guessing that next year we will save between $30 and $40 million just with that one idea. And it was just an idea. It doesn't take any of our services away, doesn't lay anybody off. Another example, Wendy Gruhl figured out that we lose several million dollars a year because of the way we pay our bills. And that is, we pay our bills the same way I do it at home. I get a bill, I say, I don't want to misplace this bill and accidentally pay it late, so I pay the bill. So maybe it costs me $20 a year in interest because I pay the bills right away. Well, the city does the same thing. But the city has sophisticated computer systems and filing systems and everything else. There's no reason they should pay a bill when they get it. They should figure out the exact right day to pay so they won't be late, but they won't be turning it in too early, and maximize the money. So they probably make somewhere between, we probably make somewhere between $5 and $10 million by paying a bill at the right time. So we've been pushing a number of those efficiencies, and we've just passed a budget that is probably down to about a $60 million gap. And that gap we're trying to negotiate with our employees, where we believe that's the appropriate level of concessions for them for this year. And hopefully if they make those concessions, we won't have the massive service cuts that we thought, and we won't have to lay anybody off. The greatest reason not to lay people off when it's in these small numbers is the employees that gave us this great deal last year did it with one concession, which was, you don't lay any of our members off if we're giving you $80 million. One of the concessions is we owed them substantial raises. They said we won't take any raises for 2 years. We'll postpone them. But the first person you lay off, you have to pay all those raises. So if we lay one person off, we pay our city employees an extra $32 million. Plus unemployment, plus there's a whole process where people bump the person under them rather than getting laid off, and it's the person at the bottom that gets laid off. So hundreds and hundreds of people get moved to different jobs that they might not have done in 20 years, and they ideally wouldn't be doing. So the whole process is pretty screwy, and at that small number of layoffs, we make very little money above that. So it literally makes no sense to do layoffs in those small numbers. If we were doing 4,000, we'd have a big savings. But at 700, the first several hundred of them don't save us any money, so it makes absolutely no sense. It's been a very difficult process. I'm hoping at the end of it, we just wind up with the losses of the 3,000 employees that we talked about and intentionally tried to achieve. We wind up cutting our non-sworn workforce by about 20%, which is probably an appropriate amount. Things will still be slower. Your potholes, instead of getting filled in 1 to 2 days, will probably take 4 to 7 days. The tree trimming schedule will probably be longer than it already was, which is already too long. But I think we'll be able to get through this. It'll be like this for a few years, and then hopefully services will return once our economy starts to get better. We also have to deal with a pension system and some other things long term. Our pensions became too generous over the last 10 years, and we changed some of the ways we do it because the economy was great. For whatever reason, my predecessors decided it would always be that great. And so they base pay and benefits on that. It turned out, not surprisingly, to be too generous. And for future employees, we're going to have to negotiate something that's less generous. Right now, certain groups of employees can take their retirement at age 50. Particularly the police have the most generous. It's based on their highest year of salary rather than their 3 highest years, which is common in a lot of places. We probably should move it to age 60 rather than 50 as the retirement age. Make it the top 3 years rather than 1, and do a few other things to ease the cost of it. Otherwise, at some point we will run out of money and go bankrupt, whether it's 10 or 15 years from now. So we have to make some of those changes as well. I'm chair of the Audits and Government Efficiency Committee. That's part of why I've been focused so much on looking for these efficiencies. We're hearing a lot of Wendy Gould's audits and trying to pull good ideas from them. We're also looking back at Laura Chick's audits, which the city, for whatever reason, ignored to a substantial degree, and looking for the best ideas there and money-saving ideas. One of the ones that Laura came up with, which I've been pushing, and I think we absolutely have to do, although the pension systems are resistant, is we have 3 pension systems. A lot of their functions are identical, and they have very good investment advisors, but their rate of return has been almost identical for all 3 pension systems. So it makes sense to use one set of advisors, to use one set of a lot of the bureaucratic functions, and according to Laura's audit, we would save $500 million over a 30-year period. That's a lot of money just to reduce some bureaucracy and, again, not lose any real service. So I'm pushing hard for that as well. I'll just mention a few successes that